good to go. So just rinse my mouth out with a bit of water. Obviously, the danger is that having about 5 minutes ago had the Bakers that was 57%, there is a danger that the higher alcohol percentage is going to affect my flavours, my taste buds in my mouth, affect my flavours like I taste of anything. So getting some water down, and I'm not going to need it for my next one anyway, because it's 40% or 80 proof if you're in the US, and I wouldn't be adding water to it, because if it's no good at 40% and it needs water adding to it, then personally speaking, they've probably done something wrong with the whiskey, because if you're at 40% and you need to add water to improve the flavour, you should have done that already. Anyway. Right, so the next one we're going to have is the third of the 4 small batch bourbon collection from the Beam Estate, which is Basil Hayden's. Have I got the right label the right way around? Yes, I have. Yeah, Basil Hayden's. Now, Basil Hayden is not, believe it or not, a member of the Beam family. I was going to do a joke as well, bugger. I was going to start off by saying, we've had a booker, we've had a baker, now it's time for a candlestick maker. Not a very good joke, but you know, that was what I was going to start with and completely forgot. Anyway, Basil Hayden is not a member of the Beam family. It's actually named after a guy called Basil Hayden Sr., who was a distiller who started in 1796, and he was kind of known for using more rye in the corn-based mash as opposed to what everybody else was doing. So he was kind of a bit of a pioneer in terms of bourbon production. Now, his grandson Raymond founded a distillery in Nelson County, and I'm not going to put a map up of it because hopefully I can get hold of one of these. Named the distillery Old Grandad after his grandfather, who was this renowned distiller. Now, there we go. Now, so this one was introduced in 1992, not long after Booker's had relaunched, when they were going, right, we're going to do the small batch bourbon collection. But it's one of these bits of marketing that you need to watch out for. Because if you to pick this up on the shelf and look at the label, it says, when Basil Hayden Sr. began distilling his smooth bourbon here in 1976, Kentucky was but 4 years old and George Washington was president. Today we met Basil Hayden's Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, using the same skill and care that made it a favourite amongst America's frontier settlers. Now, what's this kind of implying is that this is part of the same company that's been going since 1796, and it hasn't. It's not, but it's one of those things that if you don't know that this was introduced in 1992, you'll look at that and go, wow, this has been going since 1796. Bloody hell, what history. This has been going for years. It's marketing. It's kind of sneaky, but it's not lying. It's just kind of using the tools, what you've got, to make it sound more impressive and to get people to buy it. Anyway, for some reason, the lid is not coming off. There we go. That sounds like we've got it. Now, this on this one, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to pick it up at the top of the collar there, but this is saying that it's 8 years old, and it was originally released as an 8-year-old, but in 2014, because it became really popular, and there's an argument to say that out of the 4, this is probably the biggest selling one. Certainly in the UK, this is the one that I see more of, and the one that I'm going to have tomorrow. But that's, I think, more because of the name. You'll find out if you don't know already. But I've seen a lot of this around. Booker's hardly anywhere, if anywhere at all. Baker's in 1 or 2 places, but Basil Hayden's doing really well. And they actually changed it to artfully aged in 2014. Basically, it's no age statement at all. It means that they can use some younger whiskies to be able to keep up with the demand. Now, I've not found anything about whether the recipe, the flavours have changed dramatically, but there is a chance that it might not be as good, or it might actually be a little bit better, and it might be slightly different to the one that I'm having. But this is the one that I've got, so this is the one that I'm going to drink. So this is unlike the Booker's, which was cask strength, unlike the Baker's, which I think was slightly less than cask strength. This is released at 80 proof, 40%. So it's your minimum for a whiskey. It won't need any water because it's already been diluted down. Now, you can see it's rich, but it's certainly not. If you see the Baker's one that I did yesterday, that was really quite dark, and you can see that this one's a little bit lighter. Lovely smoothness on the nose, very little alcohol burn. I wouldn't really expect that at this percentage. There is a lightness to it as well. Now, apparently this uses twice as much rye in its mash as all of the others in the small batch bourbon collection. So there's a higher rye percentage, and that normally gives you a bit more of an edge. It's a bit like grain in blended whiskies, but it's not quite as metallic. Metallic's really the best way that I can describe sort of grain whiskies, but in a good way, not in a licking your fingers after you've been holding copper coins. This has got a lightness to it, which is that rye. It's an edginess, but it's not a harsh edginess, and it's almost citrusy. It's like a slight sharpness, but it's very gentle. Delicate, very delicate. Again, this citrusiness really comes through. Really sort of lemon, not lime, but lemon, like a lemon meringue pie. Yeah, lemon meringue pie, kind of that lemon curd feel. Do Americans have a lemon curd? I think they call it something else. Anyway, it's very much like that. It's that kind of like sweet, jelly lemoniness of a lemon curd. This is very, very, very drinkable indeed, like dangerously drinkable. To the point where there's not a huge amount to it. There is this lemon curd feel. There's a nice softness to it, but there's not a great deal. As it goes into your mouth, there's almost nothing there, and then it builds and builds and builds and then disappears as you swallow. There's not a huge amount on the finish. It's very drinkable. I mean, this is like I want a whiskey that I just want to drink and enjoy and not really think about. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're wanting to take some time over it, this really isn't the one for you. This is an easy drinking bourbon. I wouldn't say this is a sipping whiskey. Sipping whiskies to me are ones where you take a small sip and you just let it linger on the tongue, and you enjoy it and you savour it, and it takes a long time to drink. This is very, very easy to drink. Very pleasant thing to drink. And for somebody that's looking to get into bourbons, I would definitely recommend one of these ones as one where there's nothing too challenging to it, but it's very enjoyable, it's very smooth, it's very, very easy to drink, and it's giving you an introduction to the flavours that bourbon are going to give you. That kind of the sort of burnt caramel taste that I always associate with bourbons, and that rich kind of dark fruitiness that's there as well. But it's not too full on. It's very smooth. You've got this slight citrusiness that lightens it up. It's a very, very good whiskey, don't get me wrong. I would happily have a bottle of that on my shelf, and I would happily drink it, but it would be one of those where it's like, do you know what? I'm going to have a shot of something before I go to bed. I don't really want to think about it. I just would like something. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a really, really good whiskey, don't get me wrong. It's just not mind-blowing. It's not like, oh my God, the amount of flavours that are here, I can't believe such a thing exists. So I'm trying not to do this as a disservice because I'm saying it's a cracking bourbon. Just, it's not a really deep, complex one. It's a very, very good. Necking whiskey is totally the wrong thing that I'm trying to say, and I would not recommend that at all, and that's not why I'm here. But if you're looking for a whiskey that you want to share with friends and you kind of don't want them to you're not sure what kind of things that they like, but you know they all like bourbon, yeah, that's the one to get to share among your friends. Right, I think I've managed to cover myself there and not get myself tied up in knots. In the UK, you're looking at about 35 to 40 quid a bottle. In the US, I think you're looking at about 30 bucks, which is a really good price for that because it's really nice and it looks cracking as well. It's a lovely bit of packaging. Yeah, so that's a good way to finish. So tomorrow we'll be having the last of the four, and then we'll be following that with something that you may well have heard of pretty much around the world. Right, see you the next one.